Fresh cup of coffee for this one. This is gonna be a long ride. Let me find my notes real quick for everyone. Okay, so looking good, smelling good, feeling good. Making sure everything's uh all good. Let me pull up the sound bar to make sure I'm getting everything. Mic check 212. Mic check 212. Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. This podcast is sponsored by LiasRoushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. Today we are discussing Furious 7, also known as Fast and the Furious 7, a 2015 action film directed by James Wan and written by Chris Morgan. It is the sequel to Fast and the Furious 6, 2013 movie, and the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift 2006, and the seventh installment in the Fast and the Furious franchise. The film stars an ensemble cast including Vin Diesel, Paul Walker in his final role, Dwayne Johnson, Michelle Rodriguez, Tyrese, Ludacris, Jordana Brewster, Dijon Hansmood, Tony Jaa, Ronda Rousey, Nathalie Emmanuel, Kurt Russell. We got Jason Statham. We got everybody in this freaking film. So, excuse me. There's so many people. I'm losing my voice. So, in the film, this is the light synopsis. In the film, Dominic Toretto, aka Bro, aka hashtag family, played by Vin Diesel, Dominic Toretto, Brian Connor, played by Paul Walker, and their team are recruited by covert ops leader Mr. Nobody, played by Kurt Russell, to prevent terrorist Mose Gigante, played by Hansu, from obtaining a hacking program. I believe it's called the God's Eye. Meanwhile, Deckard Shaw, played by Jason Statham, a rogue special forces assassin slash agent or whatever the fuck, seeking to avenge his comatose younger brother from the last movie, puts the team in danger once again. So why are we talking about this? Well, I think I reviewed the first 5 movies of the Fast and Furious franchise maybe 3 years ago. Has it been really that long? Maybe 3 years ago. And I had planned to go through 7, 8, and then when 9 was coming around, I believe I was leading up towards 9, and then the pandemic had happened, so everything was pushed back on 9, and I just hadn't recorded the rest of them. So yada yada yada. Everyone that's watching is like, I don't give a fuck. Blah blah blah. Anyways, I'm finally coming around to doing Furious 7 3 years later, 4 years later, whatever the fuck. This movie slaps. I think that the majority of everyone agrees that, as the movies progress, a lot of people love the first one by Rob Cohen. John Singleton brought an interesting flair with the second one. We had Justin Lin starting when a new direction with Tokyo Drift in the third one. Fourth one, we have Justin Lin returning, but it's starting to give us a little bit more of the blockbustery feel. But we are going way more in with the FBI agents type feel, and less of the street, quote unquote, streets are in it. The fifth one goes straight up in an action heist film, and that's when it really turns up the heat, in my opinion. And number 5 being directed again, I believe, by Justin Lin. Justin Lin's camera work in all of his movies, I think, is some of the best. With given the blend of real to CGI, but then we have this new flavor. So I feel like after Furious 5, Fast 5 in 2011, that's when it really kicked off the blockbustery feel that we know today, and most people agree with. In my mind, I was trying to remember Furious 6 and Furious 7. They blend in my head. Trying to remember from airport sequences in 6. I guess we'll be discussing all of the previous movies that have happened as much as possible. I do apologize if I really say any spoilers for the future movies. Up to 10 I've seen at this point. Um, but again, these movies can't really be spoiled. It's mostly about the car sequence, chase scenes, and then heists and fights and just action in general. It's gone to the point of most people can't remember or distinguish the different movies after a certain point because they start to all kind of blend together. And I don't blame people for that. But when I was remembering Furious 6, or sorry, Fast and Furious 6 and Furious 7, I couldn't remember exactly which sequences went which. But going back and rewatching 7 again, 7 has a wonderful blend of, I think they go super heavy with the CG in 6. I've already recorded the review 3 or 4 years ago, so go back and watch that on the LuckyDogPodcast.com, whatever channel you're watching on YouTube, SoundCloud. We got them all on all those. Patreon.com/LuckyDogPodcast has the full review for Fury, Fast and Furious 6. So the Furious 6 to 7, I think brings a lot more humanity and hashtag more family feels. I know everyone's going to say family about 100 million times in this, or family, whatever the Vin Diesel way of saying it. But I really do feel like Furious 7 has a surprising amount of heart, and it has a surprising amount of well choreographed action that feels like almost like a hat on a hat on a hat on a hat. Like the pacing in this feels very good for how much the action is just completely going. Sometimes action can become mundane after a certain amount of time watching it, just punches being blown, cars being blown up. People, it starts to get kind of repetitive in nature. I never felt like this movie ever felt repetitive in nature, which is something I was glad to go back and see. So let's discuss this a little bit more in depth. Um, Plans for a seventh installment were first announced in February 2012 when Johnson stated that the production on the film would begin after the completion of Fast and Furious 6. In April 2013, Wan, predominantly known for horror films, was announced to direct the film. Casting showed the returns of Diesel and Walker that same month. Principal photography began in September in Atlanta, but was indefinitely suspended in November after Walker died in a car crash. Filming resumed months later in April 2014 and ended in July, with Walker's brothers Caleb and Cody standing in to complete his remaining scenes, causing delay to its 2015 release, with other filming locations in LA, Colorado, Abu Dhabi, and Tokyo. Brian Tyler, who has last composed the score for Fast 5 2011, returned to compose the seventh installment with an estimated production budget of $250 million. It is one of the most expensive films ever made. And I think people are laughing at that now because depending on when you're listening to this, let's just say you're listening to this in 10 years, you're like, $250 million, that's a drop in the bucket. $250 million used to get you a lot. Now we are up to a production budget of, I want to get this right, production budget on Fast and Furious, Fast X, Fast 10, whatever the hell you want to call it. The budget is $340 million. Oh my goodness. Is that not ridiculous? Uh, Although bringing back all this family is not cheap. The cookouts become expensive and all these cars blowing up. It's an expensive ass um, feature to have on top of all this action compared to the first Fast and Furious movie, which started with a mere $38 million, which, give or take inflation, is probably closer to a little, maybe like 50, 60 million. But still, is that not ridiculous? And the first one only made a box office of $207 million, but they knew they had a hit right then. In June 22nd, 2001, Fast and Furious movie franchise was born. So let's continue on with Fast Seven. Let me just talk about my initial notes real quick. Furious Seven, like I said, going into it, my head was kind of jumbling the different action scenes between six and seven, what had happened. Obviously, there's so much behind the scenes of this movie that plays so much into this movie of the Paul Walker death. I mean, not only is it extremely tragic on so many levels, and some people would say, unfortunately, ironic that someone of an actor that plays in a car franchise happens and he's not actually always racing those cars and the sequences and stuff like that, although a lot of it was done practically. He's an actor first, so it's just so weird that he would happen to have died in a car wreck, and they say it is of the most tragic manner, unfortunately. Like this is a little bit graphic. If you want to skip ahead 15 seconds, I understand. 30 seconds, give you half a second. um Apparently Paul Walker did burn to death in a car that his friend wanted to see him drive. And it, I don't have the details up in front of me, but from what I hear, they were testing out one of these really dangerous cars, and things just went bad. And it's apparently pretty sad. He was apparently, evidently, I don't have this in front of me, like I said, but he was in the car for a minute before, I don't know if it exploded or it was on fire or what. It was very sad though. And I remember hearing about the car wreck almost, I feel like it was immediately, because I want to say it happened in the middle of the day in 2013 November. I was probably in my second year of college. So yeah, I remember it just affecting me. I remember being kind of depressed for a few days, maybe a week, 2 weeks or something like that, just feeling the heaviness of it, because it he Paul Walker felt like one of these larger than life figures. Not only was he an awesome guy on screen to watch, very watchable guy, but apparently he was a great guy off screen too. Very, contributed to charities and did a lot of donations and stuff like that. Apparently, he was an awesome guy. So it was it's extremely sad to have lost this this individual as well. So let's continue on. I know that's a little bit heavy. But considering we did lose Paul Walker in this film, the way that they have the quote unquote ending for a quote unquote send off in a non spoilery way, I think is very tasteful. And it's difficult for franchises and movies. I want to say off the top of my head, to give these types of send offs to characters such as Brian O'Connor on here. You know, someone watching the Furious 7 movie in 30 years and maybe in 15 years may not have any context for why is Paul Walker's character Brian O'Connor just driving off into the distance and not saying too much to Dom Toretto, but they might still get the idea, oh, they're just done doing the criminal heists and stuff like that, so they're going to go do their own thing. Movies back in the day used to just end on a whim. Like the heist would almost immediately be done, then credits, boom, you done. So having a lot of explanation into where people are going, and then this droning on and on about where everybody went. Tyrese opened the garage, Ludacris did that, and Dom's having a cookout with family and stuff like that. It's like we don't always need to get that, and I feel like what James Wan does an excellent job of doing is showing instead of telling. Dom could have been sitting down around the cookout or something like that, and everyone's just like, you know what, let's give some exposition about why Brian's not here or where he's going to go off to. They could have been very quote unquote, I don't want to say lazy, but they could have taken the easy way out, and they didn't. They didn't do that. And I know that they have some like CGI, quote unquote, Paul Walker uh, face, I guess, expressions and stuff like that and certain stuff. But I think generally it's pretty tasteful, and it's not like they're trying to exploit him or his memory or anything like that. So, with saying that, the ending of this I feel like is one of the stronger endings the of the series, and I was actually pretty impressed about that. Anyways, that's a long-winded way of saying $250 million ain't shit these days. Because what we got, movies almost twice that much now. Movies are going to be $500 million. Going to be Avatar level soon, if we're not careful. Furious 7 premiered at the TLC Chinese Theater in LA on April 1st, 2015, and was released in the US on April 3rd by Universal Pictures. The film has commercial success and received positive reviews for its revenge plot. Wan's direction, performances, action sequences, and emotional tribute to Walker, with many considering it to be the best film in the franchise. I think it's probably tied between 5 and 1. It's kind of interesting because if you really think about it, most Fast and Furious movies, those first 6, 7, even the worst one, most people don't like 2 that much. I still think that is a really fun movie. So there's almost not a bad Fast and Furious movie up until maybe 8. And I feel like even 8 is pacing wise not that great. It's kind of hard to live up to something as big as 7. What I think they should have done is it's more of a soft reset, soft reboot a little bit more. I know they had the Hobbs and Shaw stuff, I think, come in between that, but still, I honestly think that 8 is probably the lowest, then 9. We'll continue on because I don't want to talk too much into those movies yet. So it's grossed over 1.5 billion worldwide, making it the third highest grossing film of 2015 and the fourth highest grossing film of all time at the time of its release. It has set a record for the second highest opening weekend of its time, grossing 397.6 million worldwide. It was the second highest grossing film of 2015 out of the domestic box office and became the highest grossing film of the franchise in the first 12 days of its theatrical release. A sequel, The Fate of the Furious, was released in April 2017, just 2 years later. And so, again, the quick turnaround of these films and the extensive, quote unquote, diverse cast that they have on this film is some of the big box office draws, especially worldwide. Worldwide, these, they eat it up. North America is starting to have less and less return for the Fast and Furious. I think probably since 7. I don't know if 8 surpassed 7, but again, we'll discuss that when we get there. This is one of the longest running movies of the Fast and Furious franchise, I believe. Let me see. I had it up there for a second. I think it's coming up behind Fast 9. Let me see. This was the longest of the Fast and Furious movies upon its release at 2 hours and 17 minutes until Fast F9. F9, The Fast Saga 2021, 6 years later at 2 hours and 25 minutes. And I think that actually is hurting the film franchise as they continue to get longer. They don't need to get longer. So this was about as long as I think it can get with the pacing still being good. Cinematography, Stephen F. Winden, same guy as the previous F5, and I believe he might have done F6 on the cinematography. Yep, same guy on 6. So we're bringing back the whole Fast and Furious family. Got the same writers, like I said, in the other ones. Got to bring the whole family on the front side of the screen and the back side of the screen. Let's get into the plot of Fast and Furious 7. Now, you can be listening to this review in full and early through patreon.com/LuckyDog You can also find all the links in the description and on LuckyDogPodcast.com. Again, helping support your local podcasters always lets them know you like what you're hearing. If you don't have the dollars to support. Remember, Patreon's starting at as low as $1, but if you can't support financially, you can support free. Subscribe, follow, like on all of the social media platforms. There we go. We don't have to like go through all the fucking individual ones. There's so many ones these days. Like how many social medias do we need? And then in like 10 years, there's probably only going to be like 3 left, or there's going to be like 20. And then I got to upload, do a reel, do a TikTok, do the Instagram and Facebook, hashtag family, social network. Like there's so fucking many of them. Can we just do the hashtag family network or something like that? Like that would be a lot easier for everyone. So that's my small bumper and way of letting everyone know we are getting into the spoiler section. If you want to wait and watch this podcast later, pause it, come back. You know what to do. You always got to come back, have some fun, and listen and watch the cast and review with us. So let's hop into the plot of hashtag Bro Family Furious 7. First thing I gotta like say about Furious 7 is they show the Fast and the Furious title. It doesn't, and it's written out that way on the screen. So is it Furious 7 or is it not? Like, what is going on here? I guess ever since the second one, they've never liked playing by the rules of having a normal sequence. Fast and Furious being the first one, Too Fast, Too Furious the second one. That's when they started messing with it. Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, still the easiest one to remember. Fast and Furious 2009, the fourth one, like that's kind of not very memorable at all. Fast 5, everyone remembers that. That's kind of good. 2011. Fast and Furious 6, kind of boring. Furious 7, I guess it gets in there. The Fate of the Furious, it's kind of hard to say. And Fate 8, I guess that's why it works. And F9, I guess, because isn't F9 like a car or something like that? I don't know. I'm kind of okay, so and then Fast X. I guess they've always liked to play with the title a little bit, but everybody knows it's Fast and the Furious family title. So let's hop into this unique opening we have right here. You're gonna see me looking down on my notes because I took some extensive, hard to read notes over here. So if I'm sipping some coffee, I'm definitely not reading my notes. Yeah. Cafe Bustelo. Boosted by Cafe Bustelo. Empowered by Cafe Bustelo. This is not an ad. I literally have Cafe Bustelo on deck all day, every day. Just saying that that shit gets me going. It's like I'm ready to go vroom vroom hashtag family with some coffee in my system. So here's the plot. After defeating Owen Shaw and securing pardons for their past crimes, Dominic Toretto, family, Brian O'Connor, and the team have returned to the U.S. to live normal lives. They probably have to get like 5 or 6 pardons almost every other movie because they commit all these damn international crimes. Like, my lord. From stealing DVDs to stealing gasoline to stealing God's eye. Got all this shit out there. Dom tries to help Letty Ortiz regain her memory, while Brian accustoms himself to life as a father. Now, I like the juxtaposition of the opening of Owen Shaw and him figuring out what's going on. The action in this movie, I feel like each action scene is done deliberately so that it doesn't feel like the last one, whether it's visually, whether it's the camera kind of going smoothly through, or the editing's quicker or something, or if it's they're flying out of the airplane, then they're on this hill, and then a tank comes, and then they're jumping out of whether it's the sequence after sequence after sequence of events kind of thing going on. It feels like they plotted the shit out of this action of this movie, and I loved it. The action of this movie feels somewhat, I know Fast 5 gets handed the award for like being one of the best, maybe because it's Dom v The Rock, but I feel like this could definitely be up there with Fast 5. I can't remember exactly why Fast 5 works 100% majorly better than this one. Maybe because obviously they had to do some workarounds, the Paul Walker stuff. But there is ridiculous shit in here. But there's also, and the CGI can get a little bit, itchy, wavy, sweaty, whatever you want to say. But I got to say that I like the blending of the action and the CGI practical effects. All the stuff seems to blend pretty good and age well. And obviously, the stuff that doesn't look real just doesn't look real. But I think the majority of it does look really good. And so, with the unique opening of the action, with Shaw going through, the camera going through, seeing all these explosions in the building and seeing what kind of damage you can do with like a limited amount of time, um, it's the juxtaposition is you see Brian and immediately it's like a close up and he's like, oh shit, he's about to do a fucking race, and all of a sudden, pull back and he's in a fucking minivan. He's just pulling up to go pick up his kid. He's in full on dad mode, and I love seeing the progression of Paul Walker's character of just getting those nasty tuna sandwiches in the first movie all the way to doing these kind of street races and kind of just being an FBI agent in the fourth one, and then the fifth one, the heist and all that. You see so many different variations of Brian Connor and Paul Walker playing this character, and he only progresses to get better. And I think he kind of finds his niche by the seventh one. And I think he would have been a fantastic older actor. When he's old and grizzled, he would have all of this age of experience. Reminds me so much of seeing early movies of like I just watched Nightmare on Elm Street, and Johnny Depp is so timid in that. And it's not because he's supposed to play timid, but it's because he's kind of just a nervous guy. And he's just not comfortable on being on screen 100% in that movie. In the same way, you can kind of see how Paul Walker seems to not be comfortable originally on screen in maybe the first movie, but then progresses to only get better as an actor. It was exciting to see this guy progress as an actor. And he wasn't too much older than, I think he was like a very old millennial or a very young Gen Zer or something like that. But he wasn't too much older than me, is what it felt like. So, continuing on. Meanwhile, Owen's older brother, Deckard Shaw, breaks into the hospital where the comatose Owen is held in London. I kind of already explained all this, but before breaking into the DSS field office in Los Angeles to extract profiles of Dom's crew. After revealing his identity, Deckard Shaw fights DSS agent Luke Hobbs and escapes. Now, this is a sick, like, instantly, I feel like you can see why they had Juan come to this movie. Is there is so many scenes that feel like they provide this moody atmosphere that has been kind of lacking, I think, in the sixth movie. It's been a while since I've seen the sixth one, obviously, but even the fifth one is very bright. It's in Rio. It's always kind of vibrant. I feel like the seventh one does bring this moody piece to it because there is this overarching feel that we did lose a major character in the last movie, Furious 6, Gal Gadot's character. And it was, it's super sad that all that happened. So there's this kind of heavy feeling kind of going throughout the feel. There's a double layer of heaviness happening throughout this movie. One, because if you're the audience that is in the know, then you know that there's, how are they going to, if it's your first time watching, how are they going to resolve the Brian O'Connor character and send him off in a tasteful manner, because of Paul Walker's death. Like, I was watching it for the first time, I was very like on pins and needles because the initial trailer does not actually show Brian talking all that much, but he is just as much of a part of a player in this movie as everyone else. So continuing on, James Wan, the director, has horror under his belt, but he also has action under his belt. I really like a lot of his action films, and Malignant being one of the kind of blend of the two. I really enjoy the atmosphere and the action that is shot in this movie. It's interesting to see the camera just go tilt when the Rock is going, and then Shaw's like, "Not today" or something like that, and then Ninja stars, and everyone has these different types of fighting styles and stuff like that. I was just like, "This is a dope ass movie." I was like, "It's some of the action movies today that we watch on Netflix feel a little bit washed out, and this movie feels like it has a lot of character to it." Um, so, anyways, Luke Hobbs escapes while fighting Shaw. I kind of always get them two mixed up, so I might just say Statham and Rock. Deckard Shaw, uh, detonating a bomb that severely injures Hobbs. So this puts The Rock in the hospital for the entire movie. What everyone knows now, these movies are almost just as important on front of the screen as they are on the back of the screen or behind the camera, on front of the camera as they are on back behind the camera. Now there's I was gonna say there's allegations, the allegedly, what some cast members have said, that some people can be difficult to work with on set. What I'm hearing is probably maybe Vin Diesel controlling a lot of the stuff behind the scenes. We had Justin Lin, that they took Justin Lin and Vin Diesel. Justin Lin and the Vin. They were on Instagram Live or something like that when they were filming Fast X the first like 2 or 3 weeks, and he's like, "I'm with my good friend Justin Lin." That's my Vin Diesel impression. "I'm with my good friend Justin Lin." I don't know why I'm going down this kind of going Godfather on it, but I'm with Justin Lin, and Justin Lin is like sitting there, and he looks like he's in a hostage video with Vin Diesel, and it was like maybe a week later, fucking Justin Lin's like, "Yeah, I'm out. I can't do this movie anymore." And which is interesting because Justin Lin obviously has brought some of the most interesting films to some of the strongest films to the franchise, from the diversion of the third one, the interesting one of the fourth one, and then everyone would says the fifth one's one of the best, and then the airplane sequence in the sixth one is just amazing. So just seeing that he didn't want to do 8, he took a break and let F. Gary Scott, I think, do 8, F. Gary Gray do 8, and then he came back for 9. Not the problem with 9, everyone would probably agree, is the pacing, and it's a little bit boring. It's like, all right, we're not getting anywhere with this. So anyways, let's continue on back to 7. So, damn, Lily, damn, Lily. I'm not gonna be able to do any more reviews after this. Like, you doing that? You can't do a Fast and Furious review if you can't be Dom and Letty with the same voice, right? Just saying that, but I love Michelle Rodriguez. Career path. What are the most interesting career paths? I got to tell you, from like Lost all the way to from Fast and Furious to Avatar to damn Dungeons and Dragons. She's badass, just awesome. Um, Damn. Okay, so however, let me see. Okay, so we injured Hobbs. Hobbs is in the hospital. Dom later learns from his sister, the played by Jordana Brewster, that she is pregnant again and convinces her to tell Brian. However, a letter bomb sent by Deckard who has apparently killed Han in Tokyo. So Tokyo Drift, I believe, happens before this movie, but after 6. So it happens between 6 and 7, I believe, and explodes, and it destroys the Toretto house. Dom's like, yeah, I think he's like, yeah. They fucking they jump, and then the fucking house explodes. They blow up Dom's house. They would fucking blow the shit up completely. CGI's a little spotty on it, but I was like, I was like, oh shit. And then the biggest thing that they're worried about is obviously Brian gets exploded against the fucking minivan, and they're like, oh, is Brian's kid okay? And got to check all that. And then you see, damn, he's like, oh fuck. I guess I'm gonna have to bring the family in. And so Dom travels to Tokyo to retrieve Han's body and acquires the objects found at the crash site from Sean Boswell as as uh, as Dom, Brian, Tej, Parker, and Roman Pierce mourn Han and Giselle at Han's funeral in Los Angeles. Dom spots Deckard Shaw spying on them and confronts him in an underground tunnel. Let me stop right there before I say anything else. So yeah, it is a bizarre irony, like I said earlier, that they have the entire cast, including Paul Walker, go attend this funeral. And I think, what is it? Roman Pierce, I think Tyrese says, I can't do more funerals, man. And, Paul Walker is standing right there. And it's just like, this entire cast probably had to do the same thing for real, but for him. And that's a heavy thing to see just on screen, but then actually have like some sort of representation of it done in the movie on his last movie, being his last movie. It's just the irony is crazy. It's crazy. And life works in strange ways. But anyways, we see Deckard Shaw out in the open and like kind of in the cemetery area in a car, kind of spying on them. And Dom's like, oh hell nah. So he gets in the car, one last ride. He says one last ride like 5 times in the trailers or something, like one time in the trailer. And I feel like every single film has been like one last ride, like ever since. So I think maybe originally they thought this was going to be the end, but they made too much money. They said, we need to come back for more. So anyways, Deckard's spying on them and confronts him in the underground tunnel. But Deckard flees when a covert ops team led by government agent Mr. Nobody arrives and opens fire. I think this trope happens about once per movie, that 2 people will be fighting, normally without a gun or any weapons, normally hand to hand, and then they'll be interrupted by guys with guns. So Mr. Nobody, played by Kurt Russell, I've got mixed feelings about the whole government agency stuff. I like the street stuff and I don't like the government stuff. I feel like you have to have either or, and I like it when it's way more street stuff and less government stuff. That's just me personally. And I mean, like, for the submarine type nuclear stuff going on and all that stuff. So Mr. Nobody arrives and opens fire. Nobody tells Dom that he will help them in stopping Deckard if he helps retrieve God's Eye, a computer program capable of tracking a specific individual using anything on a digital network, and save its creator, Ramsey, from Nigerian terrorist Mose Jakante. So that's a mouthful, but that's basically what the premise is of the entire movie. Just now getting to the shit, right? The team airdrops their off-road modified cars over the Caucasus Mountains in Azerbaijan, I think. I'm sure I'm saying all this wrong. I'm sorry to all the individuals there, but let me just say the cars falling from the skies, absolutely wild. This is the beginning of one of the most memorable action scenes, I gotta say, happens in Fast and Furious history, I think. Once again, we have Tyrese screaming his ass off. He's like, I can't do this, Brian. I can't do this. And Tej is like, you already did. And he's like, no! This fucking Tyrese falling off the fucking face of the earth. He's falling out of a, everyone is in order, going, falling. Okay, so if anyone hasn't seen this, there's a plane and people are driving off the plane with like parachutes connected to the cars, but it's just ridiculous how it's all happening. You got to see it to believe it, kind of thing. But people that can't, the cars are rolling backwards off of a plane, and basically everyone on the team's ready for this. And of course, Roman Pierce is not ready for this. He's like, I can't do this. Tej Ludacris says, "Oh hell no!" Says, "Psh, you going, bitch?" And so Tyrese like screaming his ass off the entire way down. We're all laughing our asses off. I think he gets like floating off into the wrong side of the map. He falls off for a little bit, but everyone lands perfectly. Of course, Michelle Rodriguez lands it A1, 10 out of 10. Spice goes through, down. Everyone goes onto the road, and everyone's like, got the whole family, and we're all like going. And it's the beginning of a really cool action scene. And like I said, even though the CG is spotty in some places, a lot of it still feels very real, that they're in some sort of like actual location. And something about the way that they shoot this one feels still very grounded in a way that I still got to hark back on in the MCU. I've been harking back on them for a while. Like the Fast and Furious might be expensive, but they look real. I think the majority of the shit looks really fucking good. The explosion of the house, not so much. The cars falling from the sky, yeah, and that's what kind of matters to, I think, I would say, the car enthusiast that is inside me, I guess. Um, so yeah, the car battles on the cliff is fucking wild. It's like everyone is just from going under under other cars to ramming other cars, the cars flipping other cars to falling off the cliffs. It's fucking wild. So they 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 go over the mountains, ambush Gigante's convoy, and rescue Ramsey. Now, I had to like take a couple notes in this because they don't just rescue Ramsey; they have to go in and like go to war with these guys, and there's like guns and shit like that. It's like the most militaristic type guns. Sorry, the most militaristic type, not guns, but vehicles that they've had, and uh, Tyrese has like armored truck type level, uh, cars, vehicles, and stuff like that, and it's cool shit. And then all of the action that's happening, people are going going fucking everywhere. The bus eventually fucking flips that had Ramsey, I think, in it or something like that, and eventually she gets in Dom's car eventually, and then Paul Walker jumps in the bus, and the bus is like going towards the the end of a cliff, and it's about to like head to the end of a cliff. And the hand-to-hand combat that he's having to do, I think that's with that one actor, Tony, is that Tony Jaa? I think Tony Jaa was the one that Brian was fighting, and then they're fighting in a bus, that the bus is turned sideways, and you can't turn the brakes. It's kind of got that Jurassic Park thing, and it's going towards the end of the cliff, and they all got to make it out of the fucking bus. So like, and Brian is getting ready to get out, and Tony Jaa's like, shing, puts a fucking grate up, hits him with the Titanic, can't get out of the bitch, and so Brian's like, oh shit. And then so he has to do like a double back, and he has to go back on the other side of the bus, and then he goes to the other side of the bus, jumps out of the bus, and then he's like running upside top the bus. Again, this is all in the fucking trailer. Like, why you gotta ruin this? Why you gotta show this entire scene on the trailer? I probably got spoiled for this and didn't even know. So he's running off the bus, and the bus is getting ready to go off the cliff. He's like, and then he goes and he jumps, and Michelle Rodriguez is like, family. And she like whips the car around like 180 status, and he's like, ah! Grabs, what is that, the spoiler? And then he's like holding her, I was like, ah! Like off the side of the cliff, almost about to fall off, but she saves his life, and he's like, and that's that wild scene that happens with Brian O'Connor. So long story short, Paul Walker probably would have turned into an even more of an action star had he not passed. But any action scene, it looked like a ton of these action scenes look very plausible that he did. I know he has stuntmen and stuff like that, but there wasn't really a time and I was like, is that Paul or not? But it just, I was like, dude, this dude looks like he's actually on a fucking bus about to fly off a fucking cliff. I was like, Jesus. So, so yeah, the showdown on the cliff is with Damn. Okay, so yeah, they don't just like I said, I had to be a little more detailed than what Wikipedia has given me on this. They don't just save Ramsey. You know, Dom has to go hashtag family on it, and you know he has Ramsey in the side of the car. He's like, "Where we go, we don't need roads," and they're like on a cliff, getting ready to get shot up by Jimon Hansu's guys, and you're like, you have nowhere to run, Toretto. And he's like, oh yeah. And he's like staring. They're both staring eye to eye, and there's a cliff on the behind Toretto, and she's like, you're not doing what I think you're gonna do. And then the people in the God's Eye and the drone or something like that, they're like, is he gonna do what he think he's gonna do? And Dom's like, I think I'm gonna do what I think I'm gonna do. And he's like, and then all this dirt that goes, like the dirt goes in the eyes, and Jimon Hansu's like, ah! Like he screamed. Jimon Hansu's always be screaming, so he's just like screaming, like ah! And just like, so he's screaming. There's dirt, dust storm, and then we have Toretto's car is facing the cliff, and he's like, and flies off the cliff, literally gasses it, boom, goes hashtag family right off the cliff. And this fucking car flips not once, not twice, but maybe like 12 times, like, and of course, family gets down there, picks him up, is like, oh, bro, hashtag family. And he's, of course, just barely scratched on the head. And then he has Ramsey, who's there, is just kind of like, and they were like, all right, we got to take her because she's fucking passed out and whatever else. So that's how they save Ramsey. It's not no one sentence ass bullshit like Wikipedia got right here. I tell you the real shit right here. I'll tell you how it is and exactly how it happened. Just about how it happened. But maybe it wasn't 12 flips, but you know, whatever. So where are we at? Yeah, we saved Ramsey. That was kind of an ordeal. Okay, so we rescue Ramsey. They leave for the Etihad towers in Abu Dhabi. I'm sorry if I didn't say that correctly. And steal the flash drive containing the God's Eye chip from a billionaire hidden in a Lacan Hypersport. I believe that's a nice car. With God's Eye secure, and of course in Dubai we have very interesting things. One, they really sexualize Ramsey, saying Tej like, no, that's a woman, and Tyrese just horny as balls. I don't think that's going to age 100% well because we don't really do the ogling anymore. It's kind of interesting, the slow walk out from the beach. Like they gave Ramsey or Nathalie Emmanuel, like they gave her the James Bond getting out of the Baywatch, slow walking out of the beach scene, and yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously she's gorgeous, she's beautiful, but I just noticed that I don't feel like movies really stop and sexualize people like that as much anymore. I want to say this might have been one of the last times they actually do that. I know the uh, sexuality in general has changed a whole bunch, especially what is this 10 years later. Um, but still, I'm like, this is kind of interesting. It's been a while since I've seen a movie where there's ooh ah ooh ah ooh ah. You know, I just saw the book club, and it's like a bunch of 70-year-old women like looking at a police officer that's quote unquote handsome and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, you know, are you a stripper or something like that? Like that's sort of kind of it, but that's more like it's jokey. We don't. I didn't feel like most of it is done as a joke. It's most of it was like, oh, this girl, you know, this lady, this woman, she look real good, you know, that kind of thing. Um, but anyway, with saying that she does look good, I'll tell you who does look good again is Michelle Rodriguez in this red dress they got her. This red dress, she looks like she can just like stop the world. I mean, straight Wonder Woman status, speaking of which. Um, so, and yeah, we do get some more romantic scenes with Dom and Letty. I think they do a good job of solidifying their quote unquote mom and dad esque type dynamic in the Fast and Furious 7. I didn't remember that uh, going back into it. So, with God's eye secured, Dom, Brian, Nobody, and his team use it to hunt down Deckard Shaw to an abandoned factory, but are ambushed by Gigante and his henchmen, who have allied with Deckard and forced to flee while Gigante obtains the God's eye. Let me make sure I got everything done. Okay, so let me finish up the Abu Dhabi sequence real quick. Letty versus Ronda Rousey's red in the red dress. Um, very very cool scene. Again, I forgot that Michelle Rodriguez can whoop so much ass, and then of course we got the Ronda Rousey, who's not an actress, but she can put up a fight. Obviously, that's her job, and I think that this is one again with Juan showing that we can go from these crazy high level action, cars falling from the sky type action, all the way to hand-to-hand combat from Brian and Tony Jaa, all the way to Ronda Rousey and uh, Michelle Rodriguez. Um, so I do praise this movie for always having a different take on everything, and The Rock and Deckard Shaw and Hobbs and all that shit. Uh, it's very diverse in the type of action that we're getting, and I like that. So it keeps the pacing interesting. So as let me see. Okay, so yeah, and they fall. Michelle Rodriguez and Ronda Rousey fall on T-Pain's Gold Party DJ set. He's like, it's like, dude, like that was kind of funny. Yeah, and there's a heist going on during this fight. There's like multiple things happening while um Letty v Ronda, and then they got to have Tyrese as the to cause a distraction or something like that, and Ludacris and Ramsey have something to do, go hack into the system, and then they have Brian and Dom, and they got to go get the car, and then that has the God's eye and all that stuff, and then they have to drive the car off the damn building, and he's like, I don't know if we can do this twice, but what about three times? Boom! It's like boom, and then you're like, oh my gosh! I remember seeing that in the trailer, and everyone. I think those were the money shots. Everyone was like, "Are they going to drive a car in between two buildings and still land it, dude?" And it's like, yeah, they're going to do that. It's straight up Mission Impossible with cars. Um, because wasn't Abu Dhabi like a really, really popular place to shoot? I feel like Mission Impossible might have had like their movies shooting there around the same time. Everybody was shooting around there. Must have had some tax breaks or something like that. So, yeah, the pacing is great. Building to building, absolutely ridiculous. There's action like this just isn't shown like this. And I feel like the good thing about this movie is it shows restraint to an extent. Like, they do have these crazy CGI sequences, but I don't feel like the majority of it feels like they're in CGI sequences. They are in a real party. T-Pain is DJing in the corner. There's a lady painted in gold. It feels like a lived in place. When they are doing the heist, they feel like they are in an actual billionaire's apartment or some sort with a supercar in front of them. There's so many tangible aspects I like about this movie that I don't feel in a lot of movies more recently. Fast X did have a lot of tangibility. I gotta say, they felt like real sets, but there was a ton of CGI, and it was noticeable CGI, I think. So yeah, I always forget Kurt Russell is in this. Like I said, I don't really like the government aspects of the Fast and Furious franchise, and he literally goes fucking off. So as Mr. Nobody, played by Kurt Russell, is medevaced, the the team returns to Los Angeles, where Dom plans to fight Deckard alone, while Letty, Brian, Tish, Roman resolve to protect Ramsey from Gigante. I don't even know if that's his name. I forgot if that's what it was. Just calling him that. Later, Brian promises Mia that he will fully dedicate himself to their family after he defeats Deckard and Gigante, and is motivated to come home after Mia reveals her pregnancy. This is a very moving um, speech that Brian gives, and obviously the actor didn't know what was going to happen after this movie. Maybe he had always planned to shoot more. Maybe I don't know exactly if they had just said, let's start to wind down this series, because we're kind of reaching an ending to it, not thinking that they were going to go all the way to 10. So I'm sure this movie did exceptionally well for a reason of everybody wanted to see what happened to the Brian O'Connor character, and how they uh did like a tribute to Paul Walker. So I think that definitely boosted some of the box office in a way, um, on top of it being a really good movie. So what do we got? What do we got? It's an interesting conversation he has to have with Mia, considering it's one of the last ones they're gonna have, as Gigante pursues Brian and the rest of the team with a stealth helicopter, and an aerial drone. Ramsey attempts to hack the God's Eye. Discovering the situation, Hobbs leaves the hospital, and let's just say The Rock's just like, honey, I gotta get the fuck out of here. He's like, like destroys the hard cast he has on his arm, and it just busts off of him, and it's a funny ass, cool ass scene. But it's shown on the trailer and whatnot, and in correlation, it looks like The Rock is going to be in the trailer. It looks like Rock's going to be in the whole movie. He doesn't show up till the very end. And so he's like, he's got to destroy the drone. So of course the drone is trying to find everybody at night, and it's Paul Walker, sorry, Brian versus the drone. He's driving, and of course he has to do the switch. He has to give Ramsey to Tej and Roman. She's kind of like the MacGuffin in this movie. So besides the God's Eye, but they do the transfer of they got the cars beside each other, and like, and then somebody jumps to the other car from that, like, and from there you just like, this is some wild shit. Still getting some very interesting action, but I don't think we've had a transfer of people like that from, maybe we had a transfer of that style. I feel like we had that in maybe Tokyo Drift, when they're doing some drifting and stuff like that. So that might have been kind of an homage to Tokyo Drift. But Ramsey jumps in the car without the cars even having to stop, and they keep on going. It's fucking baller. And then jumping. Let me continue. So yeah, the drone is about to destroy the family, and then all of a sudden, boom! Fucking ambulance comes out of nowhere, destroys the drone, brings it down, and then out. He's like, "What's up?" Or whatever the fuck he said. I don't remember what he said. It's The Rock, and he comes out, just fucking has all of his military gear already ready. Looks like he just got off of a fresh gym set, just fucking just raging out, looking wild. And so he destroys the drone, and with the ambulance. After battling and killing Gigante's henchman, Keat, Brian hijacks a signal repeater tower that allows Ramsey to regain control of the God's Eye and shut it down. Shut her down. Meanwhile, Dom and Deckard engage in a brawl on top of a public parking garage, and of course it's got to be like hand to hand. So it's like, it's just like, just meathead versus meathead. But Jason Statham's like actually got like 12 black belts, so he could probably whoop both The Rock and Vin Diesel's ass. But we're not going to discuss that. Anyways, they make it look like there's going to be some sort of it's actually a little bit of a match. They both are getting some hits in, getting slammed. It's like some WWE shit at one point, some wildness, um, some foolishness. Um, Gigante intervenes, and he's like, and his guy's like, "Hey, Shaw's down there with Dom. He's in the way. Should we still do the missile?" And Demon Hanju's like, "Fuck him." And fire the missile. And so they fire the missile. So Shaw realizes that just like, you just fire a missile at me, and then the parking deck just explodes on one side, and then fucking Dom's like, ah! He's like, oh, my back. And then so Gigante intervenes and attacks them both. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So Dom used the distraction to defeat Deckard by causing a part of the parking garage to collapse beneath him. And what does he say? The thing about the streets is that the streets will. This dude literally Hulk kicks or stomps the ground, and half of the parking deck falls from beneath Deckard Shaw's ass. It's like, no, Deckard Shaw's like, no, how do you scream in Irish? Well, I don't know, whatever. What is he, Scottish? I don't know what Jason Statham is. So, anyways, he's like, Dom's like, the streets win. And so the streets really fucking did win. And yeah, Dom attempts to crash his Dodge Charger on Gigante's helicopter. And it's like, oh my gosh, Dom's like, and then the helicopter's like, and then it's like, it like does a little diversion, and Dom's like, and completely misses it. But Jimon Hansu's like, wait a minute, wait, what? And Dom didn't miss. He threw a grenade bag right beside him in the helicopter bag. And what do you know? Fucking what is it? The Rock Hobbs looks at it, and he's like, I got this. And he's like, boom. And he shoots the grenade that is attached to the helicopter that is driven by Jimon Hansu. And Jimon Hansu's like, wait, what? No! And it's like, it just explodes everywhere. And when the explosion happens, the grenade's like, family! and so it was a family grenade. So yeah, it's a lot of action. Dom's under some rubble and has to get saved a little bit by the family and the Rock, and yeah, it's absolutely kind of bonkers at one point. And of course, we got to have the Bro family ending with how it ends. Hold on, let me just finish this up. Dom leaves the bag of grenades on the helicopter and crashes on the rubble of the garage. He's fine. Hobbs shoots the grenades, destroying the helicopters and killing Gigante. After Brian and Hobbs help Letty bring out Dam's unconscious body, she cradles him and tells him that she has fully regained her memories. Now, I do think this is a little bit convenient. I don't remember her ever getting some sort of revelation that helped her bring back her memories. And I remember she was killed in 4, I believe, and came back in 6. Am I right? I'd have to go back and watch again. I've reviewed these movies and I can't remember what happens, but I think she's killed in 4, comes back in 6. And behind the scenes, apparently Vin Diesel was a big part of bringing her back. Which, if they do all women Fast series, Fast Women or whatever, Fast Women, that doesn't sound right. Fast Furious Women, maybe that would be right. Furious Women 7, I don't know. Maybe that would be pretty cool if she could lead it. Anyways, I do feel like that extension of her remembering and being just with Dom is a little bit convenient, but we'll continue on. Maybe that's my only critique to this movie. A little bit convenient. she's fully regained her memories, and we do see flashbacks to it. We see like her being married to him and whatnot, and it's like after which Dom regains consciousness almost immediately. Yeah, once he hears that, he's like, "Wait, what? What did you say?" You know, um, and she's like, "Why didn't you tell me we were married?" And he's like, you can't force somebody to love you. I am Groot." You know, it's like, oh, okay. Um, Deckard is arrested by Hobbs and the CIA and is locked up in a black site prison. I guess that means there's like extra security on there, or I'm not really sure what that means. So I'm not going to probe that. The rest of the team relax on a tropical beach. Brian, Mia play with their son, Jack, while damn Letty, Roman, Tej, Ramsey look on and acknowledge that Brian is happily retired with his family. Dom drives away, and Brian catches up with him. As Dom recalls his memories with Brian, very touching moment and very well done with this flashback, both to the attributing to Paul Walker's memory and the character of Brian. I think it both does tremendously well. The two bid each other farewell and drive off in separate directions to the song "It's Been a Long Road, Tell You My Friend, Tell You How to Never Hear You Again." It's been a long. No, I'm not doing that. I'm doing the second. I didn't want to. I didn't want to end this podcast on a sad note. This is. I think I remember why I was a little bit hesitant to recording this one was because of the heavy subject that is, it's surrounded by. The Paul Walker character really did resonate with me growing up. He's kind of a goofy ass dude, and I have friends that kind of resemble, uh, his likeness. And I feel like if I would have known Brian O'Connor, if I would have known Brian or Paul Walker, both would have been cool and interesting people to have met. And yeah, it's a wonderful tribute to him and his memory at the very end. We'll kind of close out with a couple of let me see, anything else we need to kind of cover. I wanted to do some trivia that I found. So obviously there was a lot of reshoots and body doubles that were used by Caleb and Cody Walker. I know that they've provided doubles and voiceovers for the character of Brian O'Connor. A lot of people have talked about possibly Brian O'Connor coming back for later movies. I won't spoil whether or not what happens to this character, Brian O'Connor, later down the franchise, because obviously at this point that I'm recording this, 4 movies have happened since then. Yeah, 4 movies have happened since then. Was it 8, 9, 10? Or sorry, 3 movies have happened since then. And yeah, I won't talk about whether or not. And apparently, part 10 is part 1 of possibly 3 movies, maybe just 2 movies, give or take how much movie this 10th movie makes. So, following the death of Paul Walker, who was killed in the crash, Walker was nearly scrapped halfway through the filming at the time of his death, although there is some considerations about scrapping the film together. The film eventually resumed productions following rewrites and address Walker's absence. Hmm. Over 230 cars were destroyed during the filming of this movie alone. Holy Santa Claus. That's probably why it was ridiculous to keep a car. Denzel Washington turned down a role for this film. Universal Studios were in search for a big star to play a minor role in this film and then play a larger role in the film. Taylor Lautner, Halle Berry were also considered for the same role before Kurt Russell was cast. This was the first movie. Furious 7 is the first movie in the series to reach 1 billion at the box office, which seems wild to me because Aquaman seemed to, in 2018, was that 2018? Aquaman feels like it went to $1 billion easily, and I guess I just take that, as a grain of salt. But it's like it wasn't easy for that. It's not a lot of these big movies in my head that I think are really big movies didn't make $1 billion. I would have thought that the Fast Five would have made at least $1 billion. I guess they didn't. Yeah, I have it right in front of me. Fast Five only grossed. Wow. Okay, so the budget for Fast Five only a mere 125 million, which is pretty reasonable at the time, or get for compared to now in 2011. And then the box office only made 626 million. That seems so low in comparison. Sometimes I find it pretty fascinating to see that these big movies didn't make as much, because I mean, like the movie Fast 10 has already made over half that in like no time. So let me see what else we got in the trivia section before we sign off. So it says the majority of the rock stunts were actually performed by Tanoi Reed, his body double and cousin. It's kind of cool. In an interview, Vin Diesel stated, Furious 7 2015 was for Paul. The Fate of the Furious 2017 is from Paul. I'm not sure if I would agree with that, given that I've watched the 8th one. I'll give my takes on the 8th review. We'll talk about that later. It's the third time Paul Walker drove the same blue Nissan GTR since Fast 5 2011. Looks like you might like that GTR. It's the first sequel in the series to take place chronologically after the fate of the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. This was announced before Fast and Furious 6 was even released back in 2013. Tony Jaa's first English-speaking role in a film. All right, we'll do 2 or 3 more. Before this movie was released, Vin Diesel announced that there will be 3 more movies after this one. So I guess they had been planning through 10, but the way that they have written some characters in and out, I don't know if I 100% agree with that. Brian's son is seen playing with a toy car that is based on the Nissan GTR, the same car that Brian is known for driving throughout the series. This film surpassed Avatar 2009 as the fastest movie to gross over 1 billion. Interesting. Well, I gotta say, Furious 7 has been a good one. Any other questions, you let me know. LuckyDogPodcast.com. I'm trying to make sure I've covered all my bases. This is kind of a big movie. But yeah, I thoughts about the entire series up through 7. James Wan straight ripped. He came in and he straight ripped. I gotta say, action scenes from the comedy, I think, is up there. The drama is some of the best. Honestly, 7, F7, whatever you want to call it, is just as much as a relevant movie, in my opinion, in the franchise as Fast 5. So thank you for listening, watching Look It Out Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, follow, thumbs up. You can go on patreon.com/lookitoutpodcast to get other reviews such as this one. You can get the full reviews on there. Patreon.com/lookitoutpodcast has the full previous Fast and Furious franchise on there as much as the first 7 and other movies, such as what did we just release? We have AI, that Steven Spielberg movie with what's Haley Joel Osment's on there. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, full review on there. The Last of Us, obviously the show. We have You, Season 4, Part 1 up. Aftercast, Ant-Man Quantumania, Escape Plan 2, Hades 2018, full review all ready for you. There, you can even go onto patreon.com/LuckyDog and do a 7-day trial. If you don't like it, you don't have to pay. You don't have to do a dime. Just check it out. Check it out in the description. You know what to do. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know how it can improve. Give me a little bit of hashtag family love. And then take it easy. Be sure to look out for more Fast and Furious franchise movie reviews coming down the tube, or down the road, or down the pipe. Hot off the grill. Hot off the skillet. Hot off the cookout grill. Hashtag family Corona. What? Who? What? I didn't see any Coronas in this. Was I crazy? I think there might have been at least one Corona. Maybe one. Take it easy.